So now we've already cut the pattern pieces out, so we've got 2 tails, 2 front legs, and transfer the markings for the dart. Same with the hind legs, transfer the markings for the dart as well. The back panel, and this line here is just a guidance of where you may want to create the base, but that might vary depending on how you want your fox to stand. And that's the side panel, obviously transfer the markings for the dart, the dot at the back, the centre front or back, whichever way you're facing your fox, and again guideline for the baseline. Chin with the dot, the 2 back of the head with the dart, and then the side face. You need to be very careful with your dart because you'll see that it's slightly more rounded or deeper dart at the back and then more shallow. So copy that through from your paper pattern and obviously the dart at the back there. So the first thing we're going to do is to take the head construction, and we're going to do the darts on the side face. So that's the dart at the back there and then this unusual shaped dart here. So I'll take that to machine and do that, and then I'll come back. So I've done those 2 darts on both side faces, and now we're going to fit the chin. And what you need to do is to match up the dot at the corner of the chin, top of the chin, to the mark on the front which you've put on there, which is that one there. So you need to put your needle in right at that point, and then take this down to the neckline like so, all the way down to there. So I'll pop off and do that for you. So that's that one side done. Now the other side, do exactly the same and try to put your needle in exactly the same point as the previous one. So go in at that point and then take that down again to the neck on the other side, so you're joining the other side face. I'll change my thread so you can see where I've been stitching actually. So I've now attached the other side face to the chin. You can see it much clearer there where I've changed the thread colour. The next part is to to join the top of the head. So again, try and go in at that same spot where you've gone in adding the chin. Put your needle into that point there as close as you can, and then go up over the nose and up to the top of the head and finishing at that point there. So I'll just go and do that. So there you can see I've started from under the chin again and up over the top to the back there. And obviously make sure you don't trap this little piece underneath. And then when you come to turn that through, you can tell why it's best to use colour coordinated thread. But it looks like that. Okay, so the next bit is to do the back of the head. Just the 2 darts either side, and then we're going to stitch those together down the centre of the head, so I'll do that. So the back of the head, I've done the 2 darts either side and then sewn the 2 together. 10mm seam allowance there. Then we go on to the body side, and you can see there's a dart here. So we'll put the dart together on both panels, and then we need to decide which way we're facing. So I'll go ahead and do that for you. So there's the 2 darts done on each body side, and obviously make sure you end up with a pair and not 2 identical. And this is the front, that's his chest. So now you've got to decide which way you want your fox facing. I want mine facing this way, so I will say this is the front and I want him to be looking at me this way. So take the front face, so with his nose, and I put an F on here just to remind me this is the front, and then just line up the centre body front with the centre part of the chin, and then stitch that on in that way. And then obviously the back goes to this side, so right sides together, centre seam to centre of the body part, and then stitch that on. So that way, let's do that again. We've got the fox with his chest this way, and I want the fox facing up. So the chin, centre chin goes to the centre of the body and fits on that way, so that effectively he will be facing this way to me. And obviously then the back, right sides together with the back of the head. So I'll go and stitch those 2. So I've stitched the back and the front head to the body pieces, and now we are going to stitch these 2 together. So right sides together. We're going to start at the back. So remember, this is the chest and the tail will be up here. So we're going to start on the tail side, joining these 2 seams together here. Join the top seams together, the top of the head. Join these 2 seams here, and so we're going to pin and stitch all the way around there and come right down to the base. But you leave this bit open because we've got a back panel to go in there, so you're starting at the back of the head, so where your tail is going to be. Start at that point, over the head, to the chest, round the chest and to the base. I'll pop off and do that for you. So if you can see there, I've started at this point, gone all the way around the top of the head, joined the seams together, down the chest and to the base. And now we have to insert the back body. You can see there's a point there, a dot there. And if you try and get that on the same place where you've started the other seam there, going around the top of the head, and then that goes down to one side, down to the base, and then it joins down the other side as well to close the back panel. I'll just go and do that for you. I hope you can see that quite clearly, that I've put the back panel in, and I've started obviously at the top, the same point, as close as possible anyway. Joined it to the one body side and then to the other body side. So now it's ready to turn inside out or turn through the right way. So that's that join there where the back panel's gone on, and that's his chest. So he will be facing this way with his tail up here or coming round. So the next stage will be to do the wire and the stuffing. So the next thing we have to do is to create the wire for structure inside the fox. So measure off the amount you need to go up into the head, a little bit into the pointy nose, round the head and to the base, with a little bit over so that you can manipulate it. Then cut off your wire. This is 2mm galvanised wire, and because we don't want that to be felt through the fox, or if it does get to the outside, we need to cover it. And I've done a reel of scraps, and you can see it literally is just scraps all sewn together, and that I will use to wrap around the wire. So you need to kind of get it started. Let's do it this way round actually. And then I usually put a elastic band on that end. Just to keep it in place. And then wrap that round so that that's giving protection to the wire, and it's not going to mess up your outer fabric. Now I will say that some people will probably say, oh, you don't need to do that, and if you don't want to, then don't feel you have to. I just do it because I'm probably more belts and braces, but and I do feel that it gives that extra bit of protection and stability. But if it's too much of a faff, then don't worry. The other alternative to doing this is to just stitch up a tube. So effectively strips of fabric, fold it in half and stitch it, and then poke the wire through. It does give some protection, but not quite as much as doing it this way. And obviously the wider the fabric, the more or the less winds or turns you have to do. But when it's done like that, you can feel that is quite a lot of protection on the wire. So if you did happen to feel it through the fox, you're not going to feel it straight away as a hard piece of wire. So work your way all the way down to the other end, and then put another piece of another elastic band on the other end to hold it in place. Also protects your fingers. I'll carry on doing that. I'll come back when I've got to the end. So I've completed the covering of the wire, and I've shaped it roughly to go into the head, and so now it's time to put that in. And then start stuffing. If it helps, you can bend these together a little bit and put tie that, so that keeps them separated and makes it easier for the stuffing. So I'll lift that back up towards there and start stuffing the head. And what you need to do is to get quite a bit into the nose and shape that. And it's worth spending a fair bit of time to do this, because first of all you want the stuffing to go right into the point, because you're going to patch over top of that, and you don't want the wire to be felt on the outside. So you need to spend quite a bit of time just fiddling around with the stuffing. What I also find is that one of these paintbrushes, these long ones, is quite useful to go up into the nose as well, or into the smaller area, on the legs as well especially, that's quite good. But you really got to pack it in there quite tight. But at the same time, try and get, because I can feel the wire there, but it's behind some of the wadding, so that's what you want to achieve. You don't really want the wadding to be felt, the wire to be felt too close to the outside. So I'll carry on do with some of that and come back to you, but it's easier when you've got this bit sort of rolled up and to keep it in place. I'll carry on with that. So continue stuffing the head. Well, once you've got the head as you like it, quite firmly stuffed, continue down the body, and just checking that it's looking good and in proportion. And if you find you've got any lumps and bumps, you can always use a long needle and, you know, manipulate things if it's too late, if you've sealed it. But this is very good to push things up and to distribute the wadding nicely. And you end up with the wires coming out the body like that. Sort of one's roughly in line with the front nose and one at the back. And we'll be doing a circle of wire in a moment for that. We're not quite to that point yet. There's guidance there of where it should be sitting, and the idea is that it's sitting slightly forward, so it's not straight at the base, it's going to be sitting slightly forward. So I'll carry on until we get to that, and then we'll put the ring in. So I'm very near to the base now, my base marks. So I'm measured up and made a wire, covered it, and we're going to put that inside. I'm going to put the join at the front and pop that in there. So it's a little bit oversized. That's going to go to that point there. I'm going to put a pin in there to hold it. And another pin to hold that side. And we can close this gap, and we want to get this wire up to that line. For the time being, I'm just going to put one of those in there to hold it. So I'm now going to try and put the wire that's come down from the front body and wrap it round that base wire just to make it all sort of nice and secure. So reveal the wire, take this, the end bit off with the elastic band off, and then just wrap that round. And pull that back down, so that's where that one's going to finish. And then do the same with the other side, the other end wire. Take off the elastic band. And just do the same to get that to wrap around the other part of the base wire, and then kind of bury this end in the middle and up there. And then we can pin that back to match up with the mark. So then you'll find when you hold that down, it's not very good watching on the camera, but you hold that down on those marks and it's going to be leaning forward, so it won't stand up on its own, but its front legs will do that for us. And then this can be tidied up. I'll do that. And that wire, if it was a bit big, you can close that gap anyway because it's overlapping. So I'll tidy that up and then show you what the base looks like then. So I've now finished the body, stuffed it, and I've closed the base just by stitching through and pulling it tight. And at the moment I think that's sufficient, because if you ever wanted to put any more stuff in, you have got access to do that. I think that is now ready for the patching. So now we're working on the hind legs. There's the dart at the front that you need to do, and then trim off the excess, and then put the two together and do a 10mm all the way round and leave this gap, because that will be where you'll put the wire in. I've made up a length of wire, so just roughly measure that, so, and covered it, and then shape it into the leg like this one. And so the next job will be to turn it right side out, put the wire in and begin the stuffing. So I'll just turn that inside out or right side out for you. I've turned it inside out and, right side out, and you can just help with the paintbrush just to push the seams out properly. So now we put our wire inside. And try and get it right to the end of the paw. So the idea is that the wire at the base will be in the paw, flat like that, and then I can feel it there. The wire going up into the thigh is actually about here, and then it keeps to the outer edge, and then you stuff start off with the paw, I think, smaller bits, and it might take a little while because you've got to get that right down to the end. Actually, I've got a smaller brush than this, it's about half that size, which is better, but that's indoors now. So it just takes a little bit of encouragement to get down there. So obviously work your way into the paw and then do the the thigh as well. And you don't want these too madly stuffed. It's just to give the impression of the thigh there, and that the wire gives you a good sort of framework, if you like, to actually stuff to. And then when you work on the other one, try and get them as even as possible. You don't want one that's too badly or too firmly stuffed and the other one not. So try and get them very similar. Right, so I'll carry on with that till I'm happy with it. I'll do the other one as well, and then just show you all you really do at the end is just close this up with a little hand stitch, but I'll come back to you when I've finished both of these. That's the hind leg done now with just hand stitching the closure, so that's ready for patching. When you come to doing the patching, remember that it's going to be fitted to the body through here somewhere, so on the reverse you could leave a little gap there, just in case you find that when you come to fit it, one is thicker than the other or thinner than the other, and you can just adjust the stuffing accordingly, because that bit won't be seen, it'll be going up against the body like that. The front leg is very straightforward, very similar to the back leg. Darts at the front, and then join the two together, right sides together, turn it through right side out, put the wire in, and then stuff. I would leave the top open, because how you fit your legs to the body might vary. You will need to adjust that slightly, so stuff it firmly and then do the patching, and I'll show you one anyway when I've finished the patching. Now, things with the front legs, I've actually got some of this fabric. It's antique gold waterproof fabric. It's really lovely actually. It's quilted, but I've had to take the quilting off, and you can still see the stitches, but it doesn't really matter because it gives it that scrappy look. And I have got more of that somewhere in the house, and I'm going to make my legs, my front legs, out of this, so that I'm not actually doing the patches, because the fox's legs are brown anyway, so you can choose to patch it, or you can choose to do that in a solid colour. Rather than making up the shell, just make it up of this fabric. So I'm going to do that with the front legs of mine, and the back legs I will use this, if I've got enough, to do some of the patching just at the paw end, which are brown on a fox. So that's the plan, if I've got enough of the fabric, that is. Working on the tail is very easy. It's particularly long because I don't know how you prefer to fit it, whether you want it to come round the fox or to stand up. If you want the tail to stand up, you do need to wire it, obviously. If it's just laying down around the fox, then obviously you don't. But 10mm seam all the way round, trim, cut the curves and then turn it through. Cover the wire if you're using it, and I would say definitely you need the wire on the outside and then going back. So one length of wire bent in half and to go around the outside. But I'll do that for you. Here's my tail. I've turned it right side out. Before doing so, I snipped the curve so that it would fold nicely. Done my wire, which I've covered, and just insert the wire and start stuffing. You want to get it right up to the tip because you might just want to bend the tip round and put it at a funny angle. And that goes to the edge, and try and keep it sort of like that while you're stuffing, because that is going to be the way that you're going to be able to bend it round. Okay, carry on stuffing. And it's quite simple to do anyway, this one. And I would just leave the ends there until you've finished the fox and you offer it up to it and see where you want it to actually finish. Right up into that point, and I can fill the wire straight to there. Actually, let's get that up in the point. Then as you go down, try and get the wire slightly inside. I can feel it there now, but so you don't actually feel it right on the outside. And then work your way right down to the base. So there's the tail stuffed. And obviously I've still got this wire in there. I would patch that, and once you start getting near to this end, then decide whether it's going to be an upright tail or laying forward in front of it or behind it even. So just patch it first and then you can decide a bit later. But that's what it will be looking like, and it should, if it's stitched on really well. That's why the base is a bit thicker, so you've got more of an area to stitch on. That should stay upright. Obviously, again, if you're doing it to lay down, then you don't need the wire. That's all ready to patch now though. So I've done the two hind legs. Slightly lighter. I did notice that the fox has a slightly lighter bit there, but obviously it's a matter of choice. And I've done the darker paws. I've done the paws the same as I do the hairs actually. So you put your fabric on at cross grain, and then pin it all the way around. Then I tack it along there, and I cut my fabric for the base and just gradually sew it all the way around, trying to compress it all the way around, and that seems to work quite well. So those two are done, not quite identical but similar fabrics. So those two are ready to go on now. The tail is coming along. What I've done is working at the top and down one side, done virtually the back and the other side, and then I'm going to find a slightly darker fabric to go around this section and then a white tip to it, and then I'll put more wadding in here and bring that out so that it's a bit longer. And the reason it's a little bit more fatter at the base is so that it gives a bit more support for when it's fitted to the body. So that's still work in progress. And then the body, I've virtually finished the actual body itself. I'm still intending to change that one. I'm not over keen on that. And here I've left these two ones open because the legs are going to go up in there, and those will just hang over it and help disguise the join. So that's quite a good idea to leave those open. I've still got a bit more stitching to do around there. I've done a little bit extra to the face. Well, all I've done really is to tack this light colour around there, and then find a suitable fabric, which may be this, not quite as big as that, but to go on the top, something like that. And then you have his, you'd have to, well, I usually chain stitch his bit along here and the side of his mouth, so it won't be quite that big, but that's roughly the idea. I'll come back and show you when I've done a bit more to that. And then we decide whether we want a young fox that's got very slim face, or go for a slightly older fox where he would have you know, a sort of slightly wider face. And if that's the case, then I would do the top section in a colour and a lighter section using the template, but that will come along a bit later. So I thought I'd just show you how far I've got to so far, and I'll get back to you when I've done a little bit more. But you can see it's all quite random. As I say, that's the only one that's jarring a bit, so I will probably do something with that. With regard to the front legs on Finlay the Fox, I've used this fabric to make the actual shell itself, so I'm not actually going to patch it. So you could make up your shell fabric and then put your patches onto it, but because I had this, and it's particularly good, it's actually a waxed cotton which was quilted, but I had to take the quilting off the back. So I'm using that as it is. So make up your wire, cover it and pop it down to the bottom of the foot or paw, and then start to stuff it. Just take your time so that you get a nice shape to it, and it's quite nice and firm. And it is extended, it's a long leg, because when we come to fit it we can adjust it and we would need to trim it down. But that's how you do the legs. And obviously if you are using your shell fabric, then you just put your patches on there